When I decided to go abroad for further studies, that is the fourth stage, I was sure my grandmother would be upset. I would be away for 5 years, and at her age one could never tell. But my grandmother could. She was not even sentimental. She was a very strong lady. She did not show any signs of sentiment when her grandson was going abroad for studies. She came to leave me at the railway station but did not talk or show any emotion. This is another characteristic feature which shows that she was very strong. Her lips moved in prayer. Her mind was lost in prayer. Another instance which tells you that she is a religious lady. Her fingers were busy telling the beads of her rosary. Silently, she kissed my forehead, and when I left, I cherished the moist imprint as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between us. So, grandmother kissed the forehead of her grandson gently and bid him goodbye. But that was not so. After 5 years, I came back home and was met by her at the station. She did not look a day older. She still had no time for words, and while she clasped me in her arms, I could hear her reciting her prayers. Even on the first day of my arrival, her happiest moments were with her sparrows, whom she fed longer and with frivolous rebuke, that is, light hearted scolding. So you find again, grandmother has not changed at all when the grandson returned from his university, from his studies. So you find again, grandmother is involved in her daily work, and she was very happy at the time when she fed the sparrows. Now, next paragraph. In the evening, a change came over her. She did not pray. She collected the women in the neighborhood, got an old drum, and started to sing. For several hours, she thumped the sagging skins of the dilapidated drum, that is, the flabby case of the drum that was worn out, that was very old, and sang of the homecoming of warriors. We had to persuade her to stop to avoid overstraining. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. So here a huge change takes place in the grandmother's behavior. She was so happy about the return of his grandson from abroad. She gathered all the women of the neighborhood and started singing, and this is the only time that the author had seen her not praying. Next paragraph. The next morning she was taken ill. It was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go. But my grandmother thought differently. She told us that her end was near. She said that since only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life she had omitted to pray, she was not going to waste any more time talking to us. So grandmother very well knew that her end was near. So she instructed the family members not to disturb her. She wanted to pray. We protested, but she ignored our protests. She lay peacefully in bed, praying and telling her beads. Even before we could suspect, her lips stopped moving and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. A peaceful pallor spread on her face, and we knew that she was dead. We lifted her off the bed and, as is customary, laid her on the ground and covered her with a red shroud. Shroud is the cloth with which a dead body is covered. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher to take her to be cremated. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. We stopped halfway in the courtyard, all over the veranda and in her room, right up to where she lay dead and stiff, wrapped in the red shroud. Thousands of sparrows sat scattered on the floor. There was no chirruping. We felt sorry for the birds, and my mother fetched some bread for them. She broke it into little crumbs, the way my grandmother used to, and threw it to them. The sparrows took no notice of the bread. When we carried my grandmother's corpse off, they flew away quietly. Next morning, the sweeper swept the breadcrumbs into the dustbin. Here you find that the author's grandmother knew that her end was near, and even at her death, you find the sparrows are mourning. When the people are pious and good, even nature mourns their death. This is what you find in the lesson about grandmother. Thank you.